Good evening and welcome along to the West Yorkshire Football Show. It's our Thursday night Leeds United show with myself, Stephen Brown, and of course, Jason Booker. Jason, how we doing, mate?
Very well, mate. Very well. Tired. Back from the square apple. That is what they call it, isn't it? The big apple. Or is it the square apple?
I
butchered that. I've been to London for a few days on a work do. Was in the London Stadium, which was a bit of a scene to.
Where did you think you were going?
I thought I was going to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and then realised on walking up to the London Stadium that I was actually going to West Ham instead. So yeah, but it was very good, mate. Thank you. Bit tired, but glad to be back. Looking forward to the weekend.
Yeah, indeed. I always think of Jack Harrison's hat-trick. That was like the last flash of Beelzebub before he left. Like, there was an unbelievable game, and I always think of old Jackie's hat trick when we still liked him. I think safe to say we've got lots to get into anyway. There's a lot happening around the club, even though there was no game at the weekend. We've got Liam Cooper moving on, which we're going to discuss. We're going to look back at Cooper's time at the club, pay tribute to someone who is a modern day legend at the club. We're going to be giving our thoughts as well on the Angus Kinnear square ball interview, which is just fascinating. It's amazing, actually, because this Angus Kinnear interview on the square ball every year, it's like, I'm like waiting for it like it's a big film coming out. Yeah, it's like it's a new Star Wars film or something. You know what I mean? It's like, it's something like, wow, when's it coming out? It's like, God, it's nearly October. Where's Angus Kinnear's square ball interview? And then it's dropped today, which is just absolutely must watch and fills in a lot of the gaps that have happened over the summer and give us some great insight into what's going on there. So we're going to give our thoughts on that as well. Plus, we're going to talk about actual football as well. Huge game at the weekend. We're back at it. I can't wait. Thank God the international break's over, Jason. And we go again. Now, if you're watching along, get your comments in on what we're talking about. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're watching along on X. Give us a good old retweet and subscribe as well, or follow, I should say, rather. But anyway, get involved. We've got a new Facebook page as well, the West Yorkshire Football Show, so go check that out as well. Well, we'll start then with Captain Coops. The kind of saga is kind of ended. Obviously, we offered him a deal in the summer, and then we didn't hear anything, and it was a little bit odd, and we're all kind of wondering what is going on. And then obviously it's now been announced that he's gone. He's left the club. Tributes have been pouring out from every angle. We've had Parag Marate doing a video on socials. If you look at the Instagram posts, you've got Rafinha commenting and Phillips commenting and all the old guard, all the BLs a lot. And it's a strange one, isn't it? Because it feels like almost like the final piece of that Bielsa jigsaw has gone. I know there's still Pat and Melier from that team, but you know, Coops was a captain and a figurehead during that time. I mean, you almost can't believe he's actually gone, can you? It's kind of similar to when Ayling left, and obviously what happened with Dallas, and it's another big character that's gone.
It's a strange one because I think because of the circumstances that are around it, Browney, you know, with the like the off season coming and going, pre-season coming and going, the season starting, and him still not being anywhere else and still not technically turning down the contract offer from the club. And I'm seeing some stuff coming out over the last couple of days that there actually wasn't ever a contract offered. I doubt that, if I'm honest. I don't believe that. I believe that there was, but I do believe it had been on severely reduced terms with only a promise of a 1-year contract, and that if we get promoted, he won't be offered another one. And I can understand from Liam's point of view, he still feels like he can play, and you know, he feels like he needs to move on. But you know, coming back to how the feeling around it is a weird one because it has gone on in that kind of saga. I don't feel like it's had the same outpouring as Luke Ayling when Luke Ayling left for Middlesbrough. Or when others before him have left, you know, Berardi and Hernandez, we got to kind of see off the pitch. In that last game, you know, a special kind of tribute was made of it. You know, Calvin, we all knew he was kind of going to go in that summer. And I think we got an opportunity to enjoy him in the last game of the season. We didn't get any of that with Cooper. And then because of this time span that's gone on, we've not even really had the outpouring via social media that I feel like it probably deserves, even though some good tributes have been made. I still feel like it's a little bit anticlimactic given the fact that he was, and he is, the epitome of what Leeds United was around that time under Bielsa. Bielsa's Leeds United started with Liam Cooper, I felt, It was everything that was good about, what it meant to be Leeds United, attitude and leadership and that kind of die at all cost mentality. Was very much Liam Cooper all over. And, considering the start that he had at Leeds United and the difficulties that he went through and some of the ownerships and managers and things that he'd seen before Marcelo, come a hell of a long way to being able to captain us for the 3 seasons in the Premier League and really contribute too. And, significant moments, Cooper, which I'm sure we'll get into, are about, like, there's so many of them that we can talk about. It's bittersweet because it was the right time to move on. It was probably the right time to move on 12 months ago. I think if it had ended up taking that Saudi deal, I think we'd have probably had a hysteria and a real kind of send-off for what was probably the best captain of our era, the best captain of our lifetime, I would argue. So, real sad, mate. And I just hope, like Parag kind of says, that it's only... see soon kind of, an angle rather than goodbye. To see him come back to the club, and he deserves that.
Yeah, absolutely, indeed. And let's look back then at some of his achievements. And 284 appearances, 220 as captain. I mean, that in the modern day is kind of unheard of, isn't it, really?
Puts him in an elite category, doesn't it?
Staggering. I mean, an absolutely staggering. I don't know how it stacks up against captains through our history, but I mean, in the modern day, that is just exceptional, absolutely exceptional. 119 games won, 81 clean sheets, 64 Premier League appearances, 11 goals in 10 seasons, and 1 championship title, which is the crowning glory, really. Let's go back to the beginning then. He was signed at the time when Dave Hockaday was manager. So I have really got to get my memory in check and I had to do a bit of research this afternoon because anything pre-Bielsa these days is just a muddle in my brain. That it just seems like about probably from the moment we got up from League One, it's just a blur is that time until Bielsa got here. But I was looking through, obviously, the 2014-2015 season when he joined. I mean, the club, it was just an absolute basket case. We all know Hockaday, Darko Milanic there for 6 games, Cellino, all the craziness with Cellino. I mean, it was just an absolute bonkers time for him to be at the club. And probably what I remember was signing from Chesterfield for £600,000 from Chesterfield. And his captain does for I mean, it's wild. I remember hearing he was like a ball playing kind of centre back, like this kind of up and coming kind of ball playing centre back at the time. And I mean, how he survived through the years, it's just incredible, especially when he came to the club at that time when it was so turbulent, Jason.
I mean, from my memory of it, he was very much a Cellino signing. I believe we'd played Chesterfield in the cup, I think it was, in the early stages of the cup, and he were like blown away by this Chesterfield centre back in Liam Cooper, and he were like, I want to sign him. And I mean, at the time we weren't really signing players, and it was one that we kind of did bring in and gave a Hockaday another option. It is bizarre. I agree with you. Like everything I'd say prior to Heckingbottom, I kind of just deleted. Like it was such a strange time. But yeah, he came in, and I mean, it's safe to say that he struggled. He struggled a lot. For the first 18 months or so, he wasn't first choice centre back. He was very much behind, if I remember rightly, Bartley and Pontus Jansson were pretty much.
Yeah, was that the Monk season where he just? Because I remember he was like the 3rd choice, and it was like he was not getting in ahead them because they were a great partnership. To be fair, and I was gutted when we didn't sign Bartley. I was absolutely gutted when we didn't sign Bartley.
No, that you're right. I mean, he ended up getting replaced, I think, before that by Sol Bamba, when Sol Bamba came in on loan, and then Sol Bamba signed permanently. Pontus Jansson obviously came in and around that time as well. But he if ever anything kind of epitomises Liam Cooper, he never stopped pushing, never stopped trying to improve. And he kind of then eventually made that position his own, even back then. And what I will say, even prior to Bielsa and then since Bielsa, he has been the captain of choice for all the players and all the managers that have come before and after him. And since he got that captain's armband, and you made the point there of 220 appearances, that says a lot about him. It says a hell of a lot about him. It says a lot about him, the amount of people that have referenced him in leaving Leeds United. I think of Stuart Dallas, obviously the best friends, but there's others as well that have mentioned Cooper firsthand in what he's brought to the club, what he stands for, who he is as a person. So, and that matters. It's not just all football and ability. Football and ability is one thing, but if you haven't got the attitude and the personality on and off the pitch, it doesn't mean for very much. No. And given what he had at his disposal, for him to then go on and make 64 Premier League appearances, represent Scotland a number of times that he has, and it's some achievement for a player that some would have had down as League One Liam. And they would. Absolutely. So, testament to him.
I think the thing about him as well is, even when, we've had League One Liam stuff, I mean, after the Derby playoff situation, the mistake that he made, and, online is just a cesspit of criticism and insults and abuse. He's never, ever risen to it. He's never, ever had any snarky comments. He's never kind of bitten back. He's not given the fingers in the ear. He's not done anything, has he? He's just stayed on message, on point, and been captain of the club and everything that entails. Obviously, the big turning point for not just Cooper, for the club as a whole, was getting Bielsa involved. And in his statement, Liam Cooper did say, "I have to thank Marcelo and his staff. My relationship with Marcelo is well documented. He made me a better player, a better leader, and a better man. Marcelo's influence on me and the club in general was beyond anything I can put into words." I think that sums it up kind of perfectly, because I just remember when Bartley and Jansen were there, it was kind of, Liam Cooper was a bit of the forgotten man. It was like, I don't know what's going to happen. And I remember when he kind of came into the team under Bielsa and was starting week in, week out, you thought, but like everybody else, the improvement and the attitude. And I remember him saying that him and Ayling had got wind of Bielsa's methods before he even arrived. And it might have been Stuart Dallas, actually. They got wind of how Bielsa operates. And that summer, even before they got to pre-season, they were on it. They knew what was coming, and they knew they had to be on it. And his improvement and the fact, like you say, that he nailed down a starting position under one of the best coaches of all time. I mean, it speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I would argue, Calvin aside, I would argue that Cooper and Ayling are the two that benefited the most from Marcelo, in terms of where their stock was to where their stock ended up, and where not just the stock in terms of what other people thought, but their actual abilities week in, week out, the performances that they displayed, they'd never come anywhere near that under previous managers at previous teams. It didn't matter. They came nowhere near that. No. And Cooper probably, because Ayling, I would argue, showed not them levels, but showed levels of being a pretty good championship fullback before Bielsa. Liam Cooper didn't really. He was a dependable, pretty average centre-back that, as we've said, wasn't first choice in our team, for long periods before Bielsa. So, yeah, I think Cooper has got a lot to thank for Marcelo. But I also think that Cooper, again, was everything that Bielsa wanted him to be. Yeah. He fully devoted himself, almost like a religion, to what Bielsa was bringing. He fully bought in, and he, again, led from the front with every other player to make sure that message got displayed and carried out onto that pitch week in, week out. And that means it matters for so much, And the story came out, didn't it, of Marcelo going over to Liam's Little Un's bedside, and what that meant to Liam, but then also what then Liam did back the day later, playing at Brentford away and carrying that team on his back to say, I'm here, I'm here to lead my team. That means so much. And then probably, I would argue that's probably Liam's most important goal for Leeds United away at Brentford there, because it was a real keen point, to the way that the season went. And you know, obviously, given where Brentford were in the promotion race at the time as well, you know, that was massive. And again, it's so much about what it means to the players off the pitch. So yeah,
absolutely. Well, I mean, to get an insight into what it was like as a captain as well, there's a story that Adam Pope has put in his piece, kind of paying tribute to Cooper. He says, "I'll never forget when Samuel Saiz, guilty of indifference as much as brilliance, was substituted during a match at Ellen Road and self-combusted as he went to the dugout. It was Cooper who moved several places along the bench to calm his teammate down." And you know, we've seen that a few times, haven't we, where Cooper's rallying from the bench and being a support for everyone. And I guess these days, you know, we always question the captain's role, don't we? How important is it? You know, do you need a captain? Is it important who the captain is? But like you mentioned earlier, it speaks volumes that he was chosen by the players as captain again and again and again.
Yeah, I think I definitely don't think it means what it used to do. I can totally understand that kind of idea. And I do think as part of any team sport, you need more than just one captain on the pitch. I think, you know, again, you look back to that team, the likes of Ayling, Dallas, Berardi, you know, Pontus Jansson before, KP, Bamford, I would say, is probably still considered a leader. That team was full of them. And, you know, Coops was obviously the kind of the lead of that. But I still think it stands strong that somebody wears that armband and wears it properly. And you think about some of the crack captains we've had as well. I think about, you know, Peltier, Liam Bridcut. I mean, oh God, some of the captains that we did have before that. I mean, we mentioned Sol Bamba before and what a great guy he was. But he wore the armband as a loan in the season before we signed him. That is horrendous to think that was a level of option that we had at the time. So, you know, but for Liam to have worn it for that amount of time and worn it with such dignity, class, pride, because I think that is one thing that you can never question Liam of. You know, ability is one thing, but the pride and hunger and passion that he has for Leeds United and for leading the team, I don't think can be questioned in any sort of capacity. So yeah, I still think it's important, mate. I still think you find that the very best teams have the very best leaders, and usually the best of them is wearing the band.
Yeah, absolutely, indeed. He's moved to CSKA Sofia. That's where he's gone. As Top Banana says here, have you seen the video for Cooper joining his new club? I've seen a little glimpse of it. It looks like, remember Need for Speed on the PlayStation?
Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it? It is really
I was
bizarre.
like, what is going on here? But, you know, I mean, it's an interesting move for him, though, isn't it? I mean, it's kind of... It's out there. I mean, you wonder kind of, obviously he's a big family guy, you know, I mean, there's a human situation there, isn't there, when you have to go and what happens with your family and everything. It's a real kind of upheaval for him, isn't it? It's going to be interesting to see how he goes forward with it, really.
Yeah, I mean, from what we believe, he was offered deals over here, but was only offered a year. Derby, Sheffield United, Blackburn, apparently all have offered him contracts, but he chose not to take them, and he's taken 2 years in a team that are playing in Europe. You know, that needs to be remembered. They're a big team out there too. And he gets to play top-level football. He gets to experience playing abroad for the first time in his career. I would imagine, knowing the little bits that I do of his family situation and stuff, that they'll probably stay here. And he will probably go there for the time that he's there. I could be completely wrong. I'm just, you know, speculating, if you like, but I think the draw of a 2-year deal to take him to the age of 35 was probably too strong for him, given the fact that, like I say, it's top-level football and European football that's on offer too. Football's a short career and he ain't got long left. So I get it. I totally and utterly get it. I think it's a great move for him, and I so hope he plays, and I so hope he plays well and gets, you know, another couple of fantastic years out at Sofia. Great move.
Yeah, indeed. So best of luck, Coops, and you know, I'm sure we'll see him at Ellen Road in some capacity in the future as well. But yeah,
I'd love to see him come back before the end of the season for a send off at Ellen Road. I really would. Like, I know he's not going to be there on Saturday. We don't want to make it all about Coops and whatnot. But if we get promoted, let's just say we win the league this year or whatever, I'd love to see him back for the trophy display. And Ethan needs to obviously raise it, but I'd love to see him there, or even just a tribute at halftime or something. He needs a send-off from the fans.
Yeah. Does he qualify for a testimonial still then, or what happens there? Because it is 10 years since he signed, but obviously he's not going to have played this season, his 10th season.
He's not played his 10th season. I don't think technically he does. But I'd like to see that kind of forgone and just done anyway. I'm just kind of reading on the second page here that I've brought up very quickly. It says that Trevor Cherry holds a record for the most matches started as captain by an English player at 222. Now I don't know if that then incorporates in Coops because he's not English or what. I don't know. But he's got to be in and around the record holder. He's got to, to give you kind of a comparison. The Chief played 124 times captain between 1994 and 2005. Liam's nearly doubled that, and we consider Radaby one of our all-time heroes. So that's the company that he's keeping, while not technically as good as either of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Legacy assured for certain, definitely. Okay, so we're going to move on. We're going to chat a little bit about Angus Kinnear and his interview with the Square Ball. He does an interview every year with the Square Ball, and it's an absolutely fascinating insight. And it's almost extra interesting now because obviously the club's under new ownership, and he's been there for the previous ownership and now with the 49ers. Like I say, it's always kind of a big event waiting for the Angus Kinnear Square Ball interview, and it's dropped today. Any Leeds fans who've not seen it, I recommend going to watch that after you've watched this. Of course, don't switch off from this, but definitely go and check that out. Just want to kind of go through some of the topics, some of the things that he discussed, and get our take on it as well. But I mean, just in general, Jason, I mean, it's great access, isn't it, to be able to talk to the CEO and kind of get into the nitty gritty of decisions. I mean, it's brilliant, isn't it? I mean, it's captivating stuff, isn't it? I mean, that interview could have gone on for 2 hours more for me.
Yeah, I mean, one day, mate, you're gonna be sat opposite him, and you're gonna have the scope. But we'll get there. We'll get there. It is. It's absolutely fascinating, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not a hater of Angus.
No, I'm not.
I don't like some of the things that he's done in the past or said in the past. I didn't used to like some of his program notes and stuff like that, but I think ultimately he carries himself with a lot of dignity, given his position within the club, bearing in mind that he is often the voice piece for the owner. So he has a job to do. And, under Radrizzani, he had to carry himself in a certain way and say certain things. I think he was as honest as he possibly could be without just telling us everything. We are just, and I say just in inverted comments, fans. We are not stakeholders in this club. We don't need to know everything. As much as we like to believe that we do, we don't. It's a business. So I think there's a line. And the fact that he gives us this every year is way more than a lot of clubs do, by the way. We kind of demand it because of how vociferous and passionate we are as a fan base. We kind of demand it. And he obliges. He obliges. He comes onto a podcast just like this and talks about some real detailed stuff.
Well, I thought he wasn't going to do it under the 49ers. I was wondering why it had not happened already. I was like, it's the 49ers have shut that down. 49ers like, no, you're not going and spilling all the beans on the Square Ball. Not a chance. But fair play to them letting him do it as well.
I think he ultimately, me and you spoke very briefly before we came on, and to me and to you as 49ers, not like fans. I don't call myself a 49ers fan, but I'm a 49er backer right now. I'm a believer, if you want to put a term on it. I am in support of what they're saying. None of what he revealed was groundbreaking, but what it did do was give us some more meat on the bones for a lot of sensitive and difficult topics, and made certainly me more reassured in the belief that I already had in that I think the club is in sound hands. I think that I always forget his name, Dan Moylan.
Yeah, Dan Moylan.
Dan who hosts it, was very passionately pushing him on some topics that I see banded about in this chat, in social media, with regards to, why have we done this and why did we not just go out and do that? And ultimately, a sounding voice at the head of our club is a far better thing than just somebody saying, we'll just break all these rules and we'll spend all this money. And I would much rather have that sense and rhyme and reason. So, absolutely. Fire away with some individual topics, mate. But I thought the overall kind of feeling of it was good.
Yeah, I agree totally. So he kind of kicked off. He was asked about kind of the transfer window because obviously a bit of a talking point from the start of the season and what happened at the end of the transfer window was, what did Farke think about the transfer window? Is he unhappy? Talked about last year there being an over-dependence on 2 or 3 key players, which I think is what the majority have absolutely said. Definitely thinks the squad is good enough to get promoted this season. Interesting, and obviously fans kind of look at the transfer fees and think, why are we spending more money with everything we brought in? But the wage bill, and Angus Kinnear made reference to it a few times, you're probably talking a wage bill that's never been seen in the Championship. Certainly number 1, number 2 at least. And that's where the money goes, isn't it, in the wages? And he certainly said probably the top most valued squad, or certainly top 2 most valued squad there as well. Mentioned about number 10s, not signing number 10s. I thought it was really interesting, little insight into the recruitment process as well, saying there's always tension in recruitment decisions, which I think that's great because that's honest. And, you can imagine it, can't you? There must be these guys sat around, different opinions. You get the money men involved, they've got an opinion. But I mean, I thought it all sounded pretty much bang on, all that really, Jason, and a lot of what we've kind of thought about ourselves, really.
Yeah, I mean, I made this point a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about just signing any 10 as opposed to signing a 10 that actually improves us. And a lot of fans would just sign any 10 because we supposedly need a 10. And Angus's point to the question is that there's no point signing even an absolute out-and-out 10 if he doesn't improve the team against somebody that can potentially fill that role, as in a Willie Nonso who's probably better out wide and then can play a 10. I would say it's an absolute fact. Even if, and he made this point, and I think we made this point too, that if you'd have gone and signed Brendan Aronson in the summer, you'd have been absolutely buzzing with that signing. It's only because of what's happened a year ago that we're not excited about him returning in the Championship, guys, and we're starting to see that. His performances so far this season, I would argue he's probably been one of our very best performers. I really would. I think he's in that kind of category, the top 3 or 4 of the best performers we've had so far, in a small sample. So, and if we'd had gone out and spent half of the value that we'd have spent on him, we'd have been like, oh, wow, that's a massive money signing. So him coming back into the fold is just as good as signing. Well, it's way better than signing Todd Cantwell, who was my kind of point of an example. And Angus was very honest, and he said, we wanted Gustavo Hamer. We wanted Hamer. But it was never a kind of a possibility. An agent came to us and said, there could be a possibility. We put a bid in for what we saw as acceptable, which we believe is 13 million quid. And Sheffield United turned around and said, absolutely no chance, we're not selling into you, period. And that was it.
Yeah.
What more can a fan expect? We've gone out and the other example was Buendia.
Yeah.
I mean, what a fantastic signing that would be. It was a very ambitious signing. And then some fans, like Dan did, will throw back at him. Sorry, I know I'm
No, go.
But Dan threw back at him, well, is that a realistic signing? Well, what do you want, Leeds fans? Because you're either shopping in that bracket, which is better than Brendan Aronson, better than Willie Nonso in the 10, and you're going for these players, and Angus made the point very well that Manor Solomon and Joe Rodon both had Premier League offers and options and chose to come to Leeds United regardless.
Yeah.
So to improve, you have to be shopping in that market where it is almost unrealistic, because otherwise you're shopping in the other market, which isn't good enough to improve the squad and get us promoted. You're then shopping in the Todd Cantwell.
Well, I thought it was fascinating when a little bit later on he was talking about the difference of player you can attract in the Premier League and Championship, and it's kind of, in the terms he put it, it's even more kind of bewildering, because when you're a Premier League team, I mean, we got Luis Sinisterra when we were in the Premier League, Brendan Aronson, really high prospect players. Yeah. And then when you're in the Championship, you go from being kind of, like Angus said, top 15th most attractive proposition in world football to join, to suddenly you're in the hundreds, and there's loads of teams above you that have got their pick. And then it might fall into place for you. Yeah, but you're further down the list by a long way.
It's funny how fans flip-flop as well in what they want, because and again, I'm not digging out Dan when I say this, but what he kind of proved the point was that fans do this. They do it on social media too. Dan said that well, where are the Buendias before he went to Norwich, and where are the risks that you then bring into the squad, the prospects that flourish in 3 or 4 years' time? And Angus turned around and said, well, we don't want them right now, because we need ready-made players that are going to improve us now. And, a few years ago, we had people kicking off that were doing exactly that we were signing Chris Somervilles, that we were signing Pascal Strikes. So you can't win. And I think, as much as they will have made mistakes, Angus included, there is a certain element that they can't really win. I think, Ramazani, Jayden Bogle, I think these kind of signings are all with right now in mind. They actively improve us right now, but also can progress and also potentially bring in a big resale value down the line. I thought it was really bold of him to make the point that Jayden Bogle actually improves us at right back. I've said exactly the same thing, and I agree. Yeah. Like, I'm not saying he's a better player than Archie Gray, he's not. But in terms of the ready-made attributes for a championship right back right now, not in 3 years or as a centre midfielder, right now, Jayden Bogle's a better right back.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. And it's spot on as well, because I remember Phil Hay doing an article probably 2 or 3 years ago, making a big thing about how Leeds had a dearth of those players aged like 24 to 28. It were either the players were 28 plus or very young. And there was none of those players where they're kind of ready, basically. And you're absolutely right. This is what Leeds have gone and done. They've got Bogle, they've got Rodon, they've got Ramazan. They've got these players perfect ages, because it's absolutely right. If we'd have got 18, 19-year-old prospects, like Angus said, you've no idea how they're going to perform. You've got less chance of working out how they're going to perform. And you're right, you can't have it every which way. You can't sign, we're going to sign a wonder kid, and they're going to flourish into a Premier League player, and it just doesn't work like that. It absolutely doesn't work like that. Next part of the...
Just before you move on from that, the thing that I really loved the most out of the whole interview was the point that he made about Joe Rodon, in that he came to him in the spring and basically kind of demanded that it was in the kit, the kit launch for the following season. Now, away from the fact that it kind of says, we're massive and all that, and, we obviously were doing enough behind the scenes. Daniel Farke was giving him enough confidence, and the club was giving him enough confidence that regardless of what division we're in, regardless of what lucrative offers he could have got from the Premier League, he felt so either passionate about Leeds United or confident in the project that he was saying, I don't care about any of that. I want to play here. I see my future here. Very much Joe Rodon's at a very key time in his career. He's a real key time in his career, because if this move goes wrong now, he's not going to be trusted for a Premier League move again. He could have very easily been in Ipswich's, Leicester's or Southampton's starting 11. So I think that says a lot. If you guys as fans needed a bit of reassurance about the 49ers and about Daniel Farke, I would look at that, because that says a lot. That's a player actively doing, going above and beyond to want to be part of that. So I really like that. Really like it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree 100% with that. Kind of a big discussion point was obviously selling Archie Gray. And obviously it was kind of widely thought that Leeds had to make a sale the end of June. Angus said they didn't have to make a sale then. But obviously there was a strategic release clause in Archie's contract that expired that day, when basically Tottenham signed him, because you're helping yourself then, you're protecting yourself a little bit more. And it was just one of those situations. They said they didn't have to sell, but like Angus made clear very, very, a little bit later on, the family wanted to move, Archie wanted to move, and there's no competition. I mean, he's on life-changing money that Leeds can't compete against. And it gets very difficult when the player wants to go. And he even said, him and Parag, I mean, look, we don't know if it's true or not, but they had said they were ringing Archie and his representative saying, look, if you're not sure about this, turn the car around, come back to training with Leeds. We didn't have to sell him. Now, whether you believe it or not, I don't know, but we weren't in a situation where we were probably going to get sales later. They expected Somerville to go. They absolutely expected Somerville to leave. Rutter, obviously people complained about the release clause, but look at the context. You've sold a player with one good championship season for 40 million.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bonkers, isn't it, really? And what can you do? What can you do? When they've got offers and when the player wants to move, when the player's driving the move.
I mean, just to talk on them both individually, pretty quickly. I think the situation with Archie and the biggest problem is on social media, people fill the void of things that they don't understand with just gossip
conspiracy.
They're just conspiracy. So, the facts are, and Angus made this point very clear, that a release clause is always driven by the player, because it makes no sense to ever drive it from the club. It makes no logical sense because you are then shelved, you're ceilinged at something. So
he only signed that new contract, didn't he? Because the release clause is what's kind of implied there as well, isn't it?
Exactly that. And not only that, if we hadn't have signed him to a new contract, come the summer, if we are still in the Championship, which we were, our position in terms of his value would have been a lot less, because Archie's going to have been on 500 quid a week or something daft. Yeah, he'd have been screaming at the top of it. As Angus said, he had Real Madrid, he had Bayern Munich, he had all these clubs looking at him. So he's not going to want to stay in the Championship, guys. As much as he's a Leeds fan, he's grown up in and around football. He's got football dad, he's got football family that fully understand it, that have always taught him and educated him in what it actually means to be a professional footballer, not just a football fan. So when these contracts and offers and opportunities are being, put in front of you, you want them. And, I've seen Gavin say there about he had a 6-year, £30 million contract staring him in the face. It's exactly that. Plus Premier League football, plus a fantastic manager to develop under. And Angus made the point clearly. He very much believes that Archie will end up going on and playing for a Real Madrid. You can't step in front of that, and they were still prepared to turn that money down, but the release clause was activated, and Archie chose to make the move happen. In no world would they ever have wanted to see Archie Gray leave the doors this summer, not just because of what it meant to the fans and the club, but because of the financial aspects to it, because in another 12 months' time, it'd have probably been worth another 20 million on top of what we got. So you have to try and take these blinkers off of the pain and suffering that we've had through previous ownership and see it with a dose of reality. Angus was very honest, and I don't think he sold the family out at all in that, they wanted the move and they got the move. So
no, they love the club. It's nothing to do with that. They still love the club. I mean, it was interesting, actually, because he gave an insight into what Leeds are competing against in terms of youth recruitment. Mentioned the Manchester clubs, obviously, are just sweeps. You know it firsthand, don't you, mate? And they're sweeping up talent. He mentioned Finlay Gorman, who Leeds offered to match the terms that Man City were offering. He's chosen to go to Man City. He didn't have that Leeds connection, obviously, like Archie made. And, that's a massive challenge that Leeds have got, because, I think, how many players did he mention that they have from Yorkshire, in the Yorkshire area? 60 or something, 60 or 70 on their books.
I forget the specific number, but what I will tell you with that is that I go out and see academy prospects every weekend pretty much. I'm speaking to parents, speaking to coaches, speaking on behalf of young players, and the amount of them in the Bradford area or the West Yorkshire area that are travelling over to Manchester City on the weekly is unfathomable. They've got so many. So this is the trouble that they're having, and it gets even harder and worse the further down the pyramid that you go. Leeds United still holds a certain amount of pull, thankfully, whereas some of the clubs locally just don't. So they lose all of these to Leeds, who then lose them to a Manchester City. So it's a very, very difficult market to shop in. So I get it completely. And still at the end of the day, if you take away the family legacy to Archie Gray, £40 million for him after one good Championship season is still pretty good money for a Championship club. Now, sure, we'll probably look on in a year or 2 or 3 years' time and think that stings when he goes to Real Madrid for 100 million. But that's the nature of football, unfortunately, especially when we're not a Premier League club. That deal wouldn't have happened if we were in the Premier League, guys.
No, Rutter wouldn't. Rotterdale probably wouldn't have.
Getting on to Gio specifically, it's clear that Gio was happy to stay at Leeds, but once that offer got put on the table and the release clause got activated by that deadline day again, the deadline day of the contract, of the release clause, sorry, he then had a very easy decision to make because Brighton's a fantastic project and prospect, and he gets to play Premier League football. He gets a proper crack at it this time instead of the shit show that we put him through last time. He's more developed, and for Leeds again, we make 40 million for a player that is a bit rough around the edges. As much as I love him, he's still rough around the edges, and he's had one good championship season.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I would argue that we're not that much worse off for him going, especially given the fact that, as Angus and Dan kind of put towards in that interview, Danny Farker and Leeds have tried to evolve from being so dependent on one or two players. And I think
we've seen that, haven't we? We've seen it. Yeah, I feel it. Yeah, absolutely. It leads off into an interesting area that for me was probably the most kind of downbeat area. And it's actually nothing to do with Leeds. It's the kind of position of PSR and actually what a bit of a poison it is on the game. And how it's protecting those elite clubs. Angus said probably Newcastle, Villa and Leeds are the only clubs really, just due to sheer potential, fan base and everything else that can actually maybe breach that. And what it really brings home is, even if we get promoted this season, Angus himself said there'd be a huge challenge in the Premier League and the squad would need massive churn. And you're going, oh my goodness me. It'd be one of them things, I think, this time where you'd celebrate promotion and then immediately you'd be like, oh my God, how do we survive this league? Because the odds are stacked against you. I mean, even if we extend the backroom staff, that goes on your PSR. Yeah. I mean, it's insane. I mean, the game is just getting strangled. Like, who wants to watch? For me, the romance of football is the little minnows can rise up and do something. Or Leeds United, who sleeping giant can come back and do it. But that's getting harder and harder. And, we're just not built, I don't think, to be a yo-yo team. And like Angus said, the Premier League will have been loving it that the three that got promoted went straight back down.
That's sad, isn't it? That was really shocking. Shocking. Comes as no surprise. It comes as absolutely no surprise. What I will say is it does in tandem make recruitment and coaching more prominent and more important than ever before. Because, and I hate saying that Brentford have done a good job at it, but they have. In that they've recruited so well for a small amount of fees in most cases, the money ball approach and all the rest of it. And then they've backed it up with great coaching there to develop players on. You look at Brian Mbeumo and Johan Wisser and the team's full of them, the players that have kind of gone on from levels every year. I mean, I felt sure they'd be in and around the bottom three this season, and they've taken off like a house on fire without Tony this season. I'm just like, oh, whatever. They're a good club. Right, whatever. They're a good club now.
They're well run.
They are well run, and that's what you need to hope for these clubs that are trying to breach this gap. That you can do some of that.
Sorry to interrupt you, but isn't it annoying when you've got basket cases like Manchester United and Chelsea, how they've been run in recent years and they spend over £1 billion and they're run shambolically, but they're insulated by the system.
Well, what they're doing,
they're protected by the system.
They've basically created, or they are trying to create, the Super League within the Premier League. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to separate them clubs that are right at the top to make sure that they are right at the top every single year. Now, what makes the English game and most top-level leagues so good is the fact that you've always got that competitive edge where teams can break through them barriers. We have relegation and promotion, so things like that. The jeopardy attached to league football is only there because of relegation, and that's what makes it so exciting. We don't have the game that we have without it. Just coming back to the point about the three promoted got relegated, I made a point with an Ipswich fan on socials a couple of months back now. Be careful what you wish for, because the journey is far more enjoyable than the destination. And I don't regret getting to the Premier League. I loved it. And, the first season was fantastic. Staying up the second season was great. But there's a lot not to like as well. And the gap.
You might win 9 league games.
If you're lucky, mate.
Out of 38.
If you're lucky. I mean, 9 probably keeps you up. Like, some of these, I can't remember what the bottom 3 won last season, but I don't think any of them got to 9.
No.
That's 27 points. I don't think any of them got to 9 wins. So you're absolutely spot on. The gap is so big. And Ipswich are rattling around. And if they manage to stay up this season, fair dues. I mean, you have just surpassed anything that I thought imaginable. But the gap, looking at that team, is so big, even to a Brentford or a Crystal Palace I'd even say an Everton if they could get the bloody act together. It's so big. It is literally so big. So, yeah, it is very, very sad, mate. Very sad to see this.
Even if you stay up one season, it's year 2, isn't it? If Ipswich stay up this season, what are you going to do year 2?
Yeah.
And then it's even worse.
Regardless of what Ipswich do this season, Ipswich will get relegated within the next 3 seasons. They almost certainly will. Just because they're never going to be able to maintain the levels of momentum for the period of time that they need to be able to get the points that they need to consistently season on season. They just won't be able to do it because they will never be able to attract the level of players that they need to compete. They just can't.
No. It's like they had an interesting debate as well because they were talking about maybe mistakes that they made last time they went up with kind of maybe ambitious signings or whatever. And I think Dan was saying about, well, have we learned his lesson? But Angus was like, well, you kind of have to go for it when you get in the Premier League because if you kind of just sit back with the same squad, I mean, look at Luton, you're straight back down. There's almost like that risk element where actually you have to risk something because how are you going to join that club? How are you going to be? I mean, how are you going to get to that stage where you like you said about Crystal Palace, every season they're not worrying about going down because they've got to a certain level. But how are you going to get to that level without a big investment and without going for it?
And Browney, I don't agree that season 1 recruitment was bad. I don't. I've never ever subscribed to this.
Not season 1.
Rafinha was a fantastic signing. Diego Llorente, forget season 2 and what happened afterwards. Season 1, it was a great signing. Robin Koch, German international, great signing. Like there was some really good signings in that first season, and we ended up finishing 9th with the additions that we were able to make to Stuart Dallas's, Luke Ayling, and all the rest of them that did step up under Bielsa. The problem with our recruitment was what happened season 2. In the summer of the season 2, signing Juni Firpo and Dan James was horrific. It was horrendous recruitment. We needed, and Bielsa told them, we needed churn then. That's, in my opinion, and this is harsh to say, right? But that was when Liam Cooper, Luke Ayling should have been playing second fiddle on the bench. They should have been moved on and we should have evolved and we didn't. So I don't have a problem with that season 1 recruitment. I thought we spent really well. Rodrigo ended up not being a great signing for Leeds. I think he probably was. I think the
kind of balanced out by the end, didn't it? A little bit.
Yeah. Because by season 3, I mean, it was Rodrigo.
It's good, wasn't it? Yeah.
After Rafinha went, it was Rodrigo or bust. I mean, he literally was everything to that team. When he got injured in January in that cup game, we were done. After Rodrigo got injured. Yeah. So, and I would still say that statement kind of signing in, Spanish international at the time made a lot of sense. It didn't work as much as we would have liked it to in season 1, but a lot of that had to do with the fact that Pat had such a great season, so it didn't really matter. So it
would have been interesting because now, and kind of what's protected Leeds really is having cash-rich owners, big-time investors.
He made that point, and I thought I was so glad he did.
Spot on.
Because again, this isn't about the 49ers skimming off the top and being penniless. It's about the rules.
Yeah, absolutely. It's spot on. And if we'd have had cash-rich owners when we were in the Premier League, it might have, we might have been able to give that investment that year too and build. And let's just hope we can get back there and do it. But for me, it's not the end of the story. If we get promoted this season, the difficulty, the challenge then is going to be what we do next. Looking at other things then, Angus, he made reference to, and it's kind of a bit of a running joke on there about the stadium upgrade, stadium plans. And I think he kind of said it's, looking maybe for a 53,000 stadium, more hospitality and everything like that. I mean, what you would hope, what you would like to see is, spades in the ground happening, but they need that Premier League football, don't they, really? And if we do go up to the Premier League, I'd like to see a kind of infrastructure lift that we didn't really get last time. Let's try and have some kind of legacy from the Premier League because I don't think we really got one last time.
Yeah, I mean, I love Ellen Road, and after going to the London Stadium the other day, I would never want to move, but the ground is miles behind, miles and miles behind. The toilets, the food facilities, and all the rest of it. Like it, as much as I love it because it's my ground and it's nostalgic and it's still got some of them older qualities of being an older ground. So, some of it's a bit of a dive, like it is in comparison to the more modern day stadiums, and we have to close that gap. You're absolutely right. Having some sort of legacy of even being in the Premier League, even for a couple of seasons, even if we come back down, you have to, use some of that to step up the facilities, because as Angus says, with Villa, with Newcastle, with Leeds, we have the capabilities to be able to bridge that gap should we able to stay in the Premier League for a few seasons, and we have to develop that. Ryan makes a point and said we still have wooden seats in the West Stand. He's right. Like it's ridiculous, really. And the other added benefit of adding to the capacity of the stadium is it will create more, obviously, revenue, but it opens you up then to more spending limits because of the size of the club that you then are. And the funds that you can guarantee year on year through season ticket sales, etc. So I think it is something that absolutely has to be done. And the fact that we've got a lot of season ticket on the waiting list, we have that demand to be able to build a bigger stadium, but it does need Premier League football. It absolutely does need Premier League football. Just quickly before we go too far ahead from it, Michael's point there about the games won and the teams. I made a point on a show a couple of weeks ago about Forest and Everton both being able to survive while having points deductions. And I know that they got cut down but that shows you how weak that bottom three were. Yeah. They both got points deductions and both stayed up quite comfortably anyway. I mean, Luton took it to the last game on goal difference, but it were over before the last day of the season. That is staggering.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of the final major talking point from Angus Kinnear was obviously the Red Bull investment, which caused a little bit of consternation amongst the Leeds fan base. He mentioned obviously it's a high level of commitment. They're aspirational to other partners, other people looking to get involved with Leeds. He thinks they'll be one of the pillars which will frame commercial success for Leeds. And also he believes that they're now doing more classic sponsorship rather than we're going to take over everything to do with your club. I just want to bring up Ryan's point here from earlier on. He said, I really liked the interview, but I really didn't like the square ball Red Bull angle. Felt like it went on a bit and they definitely had an agenda. It's tricky, isn't it? Because it was a massive, massive thing that happened in the summer and a lot of fans weren't happy with it. Myself and Jason, I think we backed it. And look, we hold his hands up and say, in 10 years, if they take over the club and it's RB Leeds or something, then, it might be a different story. But everything that we've been told about, I think we were comfortable with it. In terms of the square ball, kind of over-egging it a little bit, I don't know if I agree. I just think the square ball is obviously, they're always going to have that kind of angle out there about protecting the club and everything like that. So I get where they're coming from. And I think they really wanted to pick into it and really see what Angus feels about it and how the club feel about it and how concerned should we be about a potential Red Bull takeover and what that could mean. But to be honest, I like what Angus said about it. I think it's not too dissimilar to, I think, how we feel about it in terms of just looking at it as purely a commercial kind of relationship, and also the fact that they can give a bit of sporting help as well. And you're looking at those kind of influences Leeds have got now from 49ers Enterprises, Pete Lowry. They've got so many top class people that are kind of putting themselves into this melting pot of Leeds United. You would hope that it helps. So yeah, I thought it was spot on, to be honest. I thought it was okay. I think it's absolutely fine, but I understand why the square ball really kind of dug down into it as well.
I just think, Browney, and I think we made this point at the time of the announcement, that you have to kind of decide in the world of football where and how you want to sell a little bit of your soul and how much of it you want to sell. And I know that's a little bit of an awful way of kind of thinking about it, but it's true. Like, if you want to, every single Leeds fan, if you were to speak to them, they would say, I want to be in the Premier League. I want to compete to be in Europe. I would love to see us win a cup. I would love to see us win the Premier League, blah, blah, blah. They'd say all these things. None of them are going to be saying, I'm happy to see us just, compete in the Championship, or, like some lower league fans that are be happy to see us, back and forward from League 2 to League 1, League 2 to League 1. Like, that's not the fan base that we are. We want to compete at the top table. So if you're going to do that, you unfortunately have to get into bed with something, whether it's a Saudi owner, an American ownership, a sponsorship that's, maybe not perfect. I don't know. Like, you have to have some of this, because otherwise you cannot compete. It's as simple as that. And that's where I very much stand on it, in that, I don't want to be Red Bull Leeds, of course not. But we're told right now, with the information that we've got, that that's not what it is. I believe that, because I don't believe that Red Bull, Leipzig and Salzburg specifically are not Leeds United. It's very, very different in terms of where they brought them two clubs from to where they are now. Leeds is a totally different kettle of fish. It's a bit like what Wrexham are doing. It is, especially Salzburg. It's a totally different kettle of fish. So I just see it as a big sponsorship deal. And I believe that Red Bull have gone and got a Premier League sponsorship.
Yeah, something like
We're at Newcastle.
Something like that, yeah. Yeah,
I'm sure they got that. Yeah. Anyway, they're clearly not looking for that full club ownership situation that they maybe have had elsewhere. So yeah, I'm just not worried about it if it strengthens our case to be where we want our club to be. And I know that's a bit of a broad way of overlooking it, but that's just how I see it.
But in it, phenomenal. We're talking about when Liam Cooper joined it. We had Chelino there, who's turning off the light switches in the swimming pool and stuff. I mean,
they're having to pack their own sandwiches.
I mean, come on. I mean, what do we want? What do we expect?
Again, though, that's exactly the point that I'm making. And at the time, there were times where we had 22,000 at Ellen Road. Yeah. Right, and fans didn't want to support that. They didn't want to support the pool being taken away and pack lunches for the players and the absolute show that club was at the time. They were wanting a successful business behind the football club, and that's what we've got. Sure, if it were to be perfect, we'd want a sane company that a charity that just has 100 million to just go, here you go. Like, it just doesn't happen. Like, so for me, an energy drink that's based in Middle Europe that's grown the most successful Formula One team of the modern era. They've grown two unbelievably successful football teams in Europe from being completely unsuccessful football teams. Like, people just kind of, I know people get hung up on this Salzburg story. But go and have a look at the history of Salzburg, because I didn't fully know it until Red Bull took a part in Leeds. I went and educated myself on it. Yeah. They changed the names like 4 times in the previous 20 years before Red Bull took over. Like, they actually probably give them more of an identity than they'd ever had. So I just think people love to grab hold of something and get upset about it. And I just don't think for us right now it's something we should get upset about.
No, I agree totally. But all in all, fantastic interview. Any Leeds fans that are watching and not seen it, get over there. It's must-watch stuff. It's about an hour and 40 minutes, I think. And honestly, it's really worth your watch there. Okay, Jason, so moving on then. The weekend football back at last for Leeds. God, I'm looking forward to this one at the weekend. It's a massive game. It's a bit of an acid test. It's Burnley, who are obviously going to be promotion rivals, we think. I don't know if you saw our Monday night show, but there was a fascinating article I saw that was looking at squad retention percentages in squads. I think Burnley one of the lowest. We're quite low, but we've still kept about 65% of the squad. I think Burnley are down at like 40 odd or something like that. But it's a big game, isn't it, Jason? And it's a real chance to lay down a marker, isn't it?
Massive. Massive at home, especially. I'll have the luxury of being there in the Cop, which would be nice. I'm looking forward to it. I don't get to go as much as I'd like to nowadays, but I am going to be there on Saturday. So if anybody does see me, say hello. I'd like to get collared by one or two. Yeah, that'd be good. But yeah, I think it's a massive, massive game. It's only early doors, and if we do lose or we do, drop points, it won't be the end of the world. I do think Burnley will be right up there, but I don't think they're anywhere near as strong as they were 2 weeks ago. The Burnley team that we saw open the season is nowhere near this team. They're lining up with Josh Loren in the team from Stoke, who is a bang average centre midfielder. Jadon Anthony, signed, and 2 days later was starting on their left wing, and he did provide a good assist. But we know what we know what we're dealing with. I do think they've got some dangerous players. Lyle Foster, I think we're a big keep. I think Esteve, the centre back, is arguably the best centre back in the league. They managed to keep him. James Trafford stayed. I don't think he's a great keeper. I think he's probably a championship level keeper right now, so I'm not that bothered. But then you look through the rest of the team. Connor Roberts is going to be in there. they've got some okay bits of talent here and there, but that I would expect under Scott Parker they'll finish between 3rd and 6th.
Yeah,
it's just how I see it, because I think he actually waters them down. I think if you give Kieran McKenna in the Championship that squad, I think they'll probably finish in the top 2. But I think under Parker, I just don't see that he has enough with the players at his disposal to finish in the top 2. I don't.
No, I agree with that actually. Bit of a selection headache, isn't it? Because Dan James is back.
James is out.
Oh, is Dan James out?
Dan James out, confirmed today. Yeah, apparently he's going to be out. He got injured in his rehabilitation, so he was expected to be back in, but in the press conference today, he's going to be out for another 3 to 4 weeks. So just as Michael said, Benson is out for weeks, for months as well. Don't think he'd play.
He's not playing. No, I was looking. He didn't start the last game, did he? So
Collio, Sean, Jaden Anthony.
Gammon says here DJ out for. So I'll rephrase it. So not a selection headache at the weekend, but actually there still is. Well, what do you think he'll plumb for the same that we saw against Hull? Do you think that's most likely?
I would imagine so. I would imagine so, just simply because we got a good result, a good performance, a fairly good performance. However, he has had 2 weeks of Ramazani on the training pitch, one of only, I think, 8 or 9 players that actually would have been staying. So he'll have been seeing largely, seeing what he's capable of for a couple of weeks. Maybe, given the fact that he's not been able to work with Willie, with Manor and, Brendan. Brendan probably would have still been there thinking about it, because I don't think he went. Oh no, did he go away? Actually, I think America did play.
I think he did go away.
He did. Yeah, no, he did play. Sorry. Away. No, I'm making that up. So Ladji would have been the other one that would have been there. Maybe he does get the nod on the right wing, and maybe we see Manor play on the left. And then who do you drop? Do you drop Brendan? I wouldn't be dropping Brendan. I absolutely wouldn't. I think Brendan's key right now. But then do you drop Willie? Well, no. So you're then left in a position where it's either Solomon or Ramzani. And for me, you have to play Manor Solomon when he's fit. You absolutely have to play Manor Solomon when he's fit. Does Tanaka come in? I think Tanaka had been away with Japan as well. So I can't imagine that, given his belief and trust in Gruev and Ampadu, that he's going to bring him in without seeing him train and play a little bit more. So I'll probably, if I had to put money on it, I'd probably say the same team as we saw against Hull. And I'd be all right with that.
Yeah, same. It's going to be interesting, isn't it, with Tanaka as well, because he's got a little bit of a job to do, hasn't he, to kind of break through and get to that point where he actually kind of gets involved. I mean, you look at Gruev last year, and I mean, he was months, wasn't he, before he got trusted? Yeah. So I mean, I can't see him taking quite that long, because he looks kind of unbelievable from just the small cameo we got previously. But you never know, do you? I mean, if it's working with Gruev and Ampadu, why would you change it? But I hope there's a little bit more flexibility in the starting lineups, and I hope it's not just sticking with the same team every game. We've got the squad now, haven't we, Jason? Where let's be a bit braver. That's where we need to see it mixed up a little bit, I think, rather than just the same lineup, hoping to repeat and repeat and repeat.
I mean, Daniel Farke has been extremely loyal on it throughout his time at Leeds, but I've always kind of put that down to him not trusting the options that were on the bench, and I don't think that excuse can really wash now. But what I will say in kind of his defence is there is an argument to be said that the right option for this game, if you are going to do it on a game-by-game basis, would be Gruev, because you would argue that Burnley are going to be a little bit better going forward than a lot of teams that we will come up against at Ellen Road. So that having that double pivot of Ampadu and Gruev might be the safest option defensively, to make sure that we are staying solid within the game. Bear in mind, we're on the back of 3 clean sheets in a row, so don't break. If it broke, don't fix it, kind of thing. Yeah. So it is a real tough one. I would love to see more fluid rotation throughout the season, game by game, based on the opponents, and I'm hopeful that we will see that, because I do think the bench now is far stronger than it was last season.
Yeah, absolutely. How many games do you think it needs to kind of take shape? Then are we kind of looking at 10 games? That's where you get your true marker, because you're looking at Sunderland and thinking surely they're going to drop off, although they are playing Plymouth, aren't they, this weekend? So I'm like, oh my goodness me. I mean, it's going to be 5 wins, isn't it? Not a chance it's going to be anything else. West Brom obviously have had a fantastic start. But yeah, I think probably around about the 10-game mark, we should have a good kind of idea of how this is stacking up.
Yeah, these stupid international breaks, and Michael's just popped another comment in there, which I think is really prevalent, but it doesn't help. But what I will say is everybody deals with that. However, Leeds are kind of a little bit more hamstrung with it because we have more random nations worth of players.
Furpo playing up front for Dominican Republic, lovely.
It's hilarious, isn't it? But like Burnley have a lot of French players in their team and English players in their team that are not going to be going away with their national squads. Whereas I think we had the most out of any Championship team by quite a considerable margin, which says a lot about what the talent that we've got.
Well, you could argue, though, the international break cost us, especially with the Welsh lads last season. Someone like drained 120 minutes or whatever, penalty shootout, missing the. That's the only thing, isn't it? When you've got good enough players that are playing international, what impact's it going to have when they come back?
At least that were a game that meant something. These games at the moment, a lot of the time they're either friendlies or Nation League games, and nobody cares about them. No. Literally nobody cares. I didn't even watch the games over those. And I'm a big England fan. When tournament football comes, I'm not bothered. I know the 1-2-0 that were in the background of the bar that I were in the other day. The first game, I can't remember who we played. We played Finland in one of them. This is what I'm saying.
Ireland.
Ireland were the other one. I saw the goals in the highlights. I just don't care. And most fans feel exactly the same. And I think most players feel exactly the same. Some of the players that were pulling out through injuries, it's nonsense. It's an absolute nonsense. But that said, it's a landscape of football that we live in. And we have to work with that. So, it's going to be an interesting one, mate. I've just seen Gavin there say as well, rest Solomon from the start, long travel. That could be a shout. He did play for Israel. We have to be careful with him. So maybe that's the case. But I'm telling you, if Manor Solomon's fully fit, he needs to play every single game.
You've got to play him, yeah.
He's got to start. So,
absolutely. No, I agree. Looking after this one, we've got Coventry next week. And then I think we've got a midweek against Norwich and then Sunderland on the 4th.
Come thick and fast, don't they?
Yeah, come thick and fast. And then, it's going to be another international break after the Sunderland game. Oh, God. But, it's going to be fascinating. Do I dare push you for a prediction, Jason?
For the weekend? 1-0.
I think on Monday's show I went for 2-1. I think I did 2-1. I think it was Lewis. Get in touch if you're watching, mate. Let me know what my prediction was. Just before we go, this is going on sale soon.
Seen it, yeah. It's very smart. I've spent so much money at the club shop, Browney. I bought both home and away. I bought a
should be a shareholder, you shouldn't you? I know. God.
It's very smart. I've got bloody raincoats. I've got everything. So I don't know. But it's nice, very, very nice. Yeah, very nice.
Oh, I don't think they've said how much though, have they?
Yeah, it's going to be expensive.
Oh, it's going to be a lot, isn't it? Oh, absolute belter. Well, we will be back, won't we, for a post-match review at some point over the weekend.
Probably Sunday.
Not immediately after the game, but at some point we will do it, and let's hope it's Leeds back on track. We'll be back also on the Monday show as well, so please do catch that. If you've been watching along on Twitter, please like the video, give us a follow. And if you've been watching on YouTube, please do like the video and subscribe to the channel as well. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. I've been Stephen Brown. Alongside me is Jason Bucket. Jason, thank you very much, mate.
Thank you very much, mate.
And we'll see you again next time. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.